Hi, I'm Michael. I'm an improv artist. I'm a mental health survivor, pawn shop owner, first time stand up comedian, and as always, very, very, very neurotic. I am also a TV host and your host for what we call the Second Scene podcast. It is a Dweebs Global production. That is why we do the podcast. Dweebsglobal.org. They give free mentorship to people around the world, every language, every country. It's completely confidential, anything from resume writing to mental health. So please, dweebsglobal.org. So I'm here today with David Eli Israelian. Having gone through mental health battles himself, Eli co-founded a fast-growing nonprofit that provides peer-to-peer support and technical training for others going through their own mental health battles. He is also launching a virtual reality telehealth, teletraining, and telementoring peer support service. So Eli, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that intro kind of summed you up a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know exactly why we're here.
Cool.
This is incredible. I appreciate your intro too. I mean, it says a lot about your character and where you're coming from. So incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, I've been very honest on the podcast about some of the struggles that I've been through myself. So it's once you're open and honest about it, I think everyone has their story too, and
That's right. That's right.
So, and I guess that leads me into what is your story? What are your mental health battles that you've gone through?
It's a very good question. I reflect back in my childhood. I always go back to the origin story of why have borderline personality disorder, for instance, and some psychologists or in research they say that it could be derived from childhood trauma. Right. So given the environment that I was raised in, I mean, I love my parents. My father's passed now, and so I don't like to just discuss him in bad light, but he did contribute to that, and my mother's poor choices of attracting certain types of traits or qualities in this man, in my father. Mm-hmm. I think also added to that. So, you think of those individuals in your life or in our circles that are enablers. They try really, really hard to support those they, dearly love, but in the end, they're doing more harm.
Right. Enabling. So, they're enabling them. They're
yeah, and there's a certain, we talk about boundaries with love, romance, whatever you want to call it, or any relationship, whether it's business, personal, friendship. And a lot of people don't know how to navigate individuals living with severe mental illness. Mm-hmm. And I think that a part of their character has to do either with, I am not going to give up, or I am, resilient, or the other one is they're ignorant. So they're not even aware of what they're dealing with. They're just walking into the cage with a lion. So I think in my, when I think of borderline personality disorder, I give credit to the way that I was raised early on. It could be hereditary. My father had it, but it's also a generational trauma because his father.
Yeah. Can you explain what exactly borderline personality disorder is?
Just picture yourself split in your personality in this, not split personality, but split in the sense of there's love and hatred. There's the good and the evil side of you. And think of yourself as somebody who does not allow, when any sort of external stimuli enters into your mind or, your body, whatever, you don't process it immediately. You're actually reacting to that stimuli. And it could be whatever the trigger is. And so instead of being, mindful, you're impetuous. So you're sitting there yelling at somebody because of something you think that they said, or maybe they did say it. And so you're not really displaying appropriate behavior. You're yelling at them or you're cursing them out. You're trying to end that relationship. You're trying to detach from there or disassociate. And then you got the other end of that is when you do something wrong on your end, then you don't want to be neglected. It's almost like a childlike behavior where you display, tantrums like, how dare you leave me? You can't leave me. And you're going to stay with me forever, and you're stuck here, and you're mine. And it's like a child, it's a baby. So you didn't socially develop in that area, or at least in the way that you process. And it's really interesting because when you speak to people with borderline personality disorder, they can intellectualize the process of like, yeah, I get what you're saying to me, but they can't implement it. Most of them can't, unless they come to the awareness and realization around, what is the root? Why do I do this? What if, maybe I should detach myself from that behavior, or that how I normally would react. And a lot of people use dialectical behavioral therapy for that.
What is that?
It's more of like, I don't want to get into the more clinical sense of those things, but I think you guys should look it up, just so that, because it would take, it's like the balancing act of checking reality in the way that I see it. Of when somebody stimulates me, I'm like, okay, well, what do I do with this? It's like adding a process to your emotions and what you do with it. The other part, I would say what I've been able to establish is, somebody stimulates me, triggers me, and then I take it through and I filter it, and I say to myself, okay, well, I could react really well to this. Like, I can blow up on them if I wanted, but then I would destruct my everything. I would destroy my career in literally seconds. And it took me over 10 years to recover. So like, why would I do that? So you start to intellectualize your process around your emotions, and you kind of like analytical therapy, and you're like, okay, I could do this, I could do that, but if I do that, it's kind of like chess. You think of all the moves you can make, and then you start kind of winding back, and you're thinking, no, I can't do that. So you go back in time. It's like your own time traveler of making decisions before you do it. And then you finally make the decision. And when you do it, hopefully it's the right one.
Right. But that's got to take such strength, because you're essentially cutting off your knee-jerk reaction, your initial gut reaction, and taking a really long, deep breath. I mean, that's so difficult to do.
It's extremely difficult. And then what gets easier, I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
One thing that borderline personality disorder is kind of like a gift and a curse, right? The curse is that a lot of individuals are detached from it. Like, they have this detachment toward their own identity. So they have an identity crisis almost every other week or month. They destroy friendships. They destroy their family. If you're a therapist, you're seeing them, typically you'll see there's like a lawsuit put against the therapist, like going after their license. You'll see lawsuits around, where they're living, whatever their needs are. You'll see usually there's a lot of dispute around those constructs. Then what happens is these individuals, no one wants to support them, right? Because they're a high risk situation. So you bringing them on to your practice is like, do you want to lose your license? Because this person is, you typically, and I'm not saying this to boast like myself, I don't think of myself as like, wow, you're so intelligent. No, but they typically have a high IQ. So they love to exploit individuals' weak points, right? The pain points of any organization, any individual. So they have, they're notorious to destroy relationships. So there's a lot of practitioners say, please, like, stay away, or go to somebody who specializes in BPD.
Interesting. Does it have like I don't know that much about personality disorders, so I'm just gonna ask some questions. Is there some because I think my brother was never formally diagnosed, but a lot of what you're saying reminds me of ways that he was, and I always thought that he was a bit God, what's the term where you just care about yourself and nobody else?
I mean, narcissistic. They some of them, they could be. I mean, some of them have multiple diagnoses where they have BPD and NPD, and
or
then
sociopathic in a way, because you're just.
I would say, here's the thing. So, here's one thing I want to clear up, because a lot of people that hear when I speak, like, oh my God, he's a sociopath.
I do not think that you're
no. It's okay. It's okay. But I want people to know there is this is how I can actually determine sociopathy. when you don't practice, when you don't exercise self-awareness, you tend to fall into sociopathic behavior.
Right.
It's not that you don't have a big heart. It's not that you don't love or you're not capable of loving. It's the fact that you aren't using a muscle in your brain to really take sovereignty over your own, mind, your mental health. So
Mhm.
you're allowing your mental illness to control you, which then in turn turns into sociopathic behavior. And when people say, well, then can a narcissistic person love and care? Yeah, yes, they can, but they have to be the best narcissist. Sorry, it's just like they have to be the most humble narcissist. They have to have humility in order to overcome their narcissistic tendencies and say to
Mhm.
themselves, you know what? I am capable of controlling. I am capable of mastering my own mind. Then those tendencies start to cut down because now they're not allowing their mental illness to turn into moral illness. And that's what happens often in the mental health community amongst people with personality disorders. They tend to act sociopathic. They exercise that part of their brain so often that they become almost bordering psychopathic, depending on, but there's a difference. There's a huge difference.
Mhm.
People always say, oh, they're a psychopath. No, the psychopaths have most of them, there's just no way that they can actually feel for you. It's just part of their brain that's turned off.
Right.
So you can't control that. But with sociopathy, they can control it. They just have to they have to be nudged. They need to be supported. They need to have that self-awareness. They need to have a regimen. They need to stop thinking so much about their needs and exercise others. And so that's why I'm not religious, but one thing I can tell you about faith and religion when it comes to, I've heard so often people say it's healing, it's like life changing. I can see why, because you're practicing serving others constantly. So another part of BPD that I've seen is that there's because of the detachment. I was coming back to the curse, the gift and the curse, right? There's the detachment. And so when they're not attached to an identity, they tend to be all over the place. Like in political party, like they don't care. They tend to be with either radical one day with the leftist party, then radical with the right, and then they kind of like fluctuate. And their how they identify, it may change. Like I'm not who I said I was. Now my name is John Smith. Oh, guess what? My name is Sally Sue. So it's they switch up a lot. And
And do they know they're doing this? Is it a
yeah, oh yeah.
conscious? Okay.
They go deliberately, they'll change their name legally
Oh, okay.
because they're trying to either redefine themselves. These are people that are I would say they have the potential of such growth mindset, but they're not always capable of implementing. Like that's that implementation process. And so for me, one thing I've seen that the gold in this, the curse of it, but became the gift of it, is that I'm not attached to my political parties. So I'm very objective walking in. I'm like, okay, you guys suck right now in this moment. You guys suck in this moment. You know what I mean?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Let's come together and try to figure it all out, because you guys are creating divide and everybody hates everybody. My cousins hate me now. I thought my cousins loved me. Your cousins hate you. They loved you at one point. It gets ridiculous. And so a borderline personality disorder could be in a better disposition, or however you want to put it, just to say, hey, you guys are like out of it. So because they're detachment, they're able to see more objectively at times. And remember that they can exploit pain points very easily. So they can see the truth in so many people. That's why they have a very poor time filtering through and, like either filtering through their process because they think they know better. And they're so honest in that. So they're going to call you out, and so
Mhm.
but the gold is that because they're so detached at times, they can build a growth mindset. They're more quickly to progress in certain areas and learn fast. So those are like, you think of the golden nuggets, like Eminem. I'm not going to give his legal name in case, but he he has borderline personality disorder is from what others have gathered, what others have assessed based on his lyrics, his music, everything.
Okay.
Now, whether that's true or not, that's, that's based on what clinicians have diagnosed him in the public. And I don't know, that's open, everyone can check it out.
Right.
And there's so many artists out there, actors that have BPD, not bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. And a lot of politicians have it. So, but when you're not well and you have it, you're impeding in the freedom of others. So it's a very dangerous mental illness to have if you're not, or personality disorder, mental illness, whatever, if you're not managing it.
Got you. And how do you manage it?
Well, DBT, as I was mentioning,
Right.
meditation, having a strict diet, having things in your life that are predictable, like have a regimen, have a routine, organize your thoughts yourself. Make sure that the people that you're surrounded by are very, very, I would say, stable, because what happens with people with borderline personality disorder, they want to be around those that are either going to trigger them to be unstable, or they're going to seek instability in others, or create it from, like, literally from thin air. Like, wait, what did you say to me? Is that how I interpreted it? Because it's over right now. It's you're going down. Like, there's no like going back on this. You are going down. And they're like, I didn't say it. I said he. Like, oh, okay, that's
Gotcha.
good. But
Gotcha.
it's still, sometimes it's the semantics they get caught up on. So by the way, you're mentioning my other organization, Pure Mental Health. We have folks that are coming in with borderline personality disorder. And some of them are coming in because they said, you have it, and I felt safe to come to you because no one else wants me around. Like, I have a bad rap coming into these mental health agencies. So, I'm glad you have it. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm managing it. You should too.
Right.
Don't be an asshole. Sorry, but like take care of your shit. Have a moral compass. Like, just because, oh, I was born this way, it's like, no, you need to. One thing about the community of mental health, they almost make it okay to not be okay. And I don't like that. They're always saying you're good enough. You are just fine the way you are. It's like, no, you're not. You're not fine. You need to change. You need to have a growth mindset. You shouldn't be complacent in who you are, because that means you're gone. You morally have succumbed to whatever status or whatever reach, or pin, whatever checkpoint you've made, and you're done. There's no more. Just go to sleep. You know what I mean? And so we shouldn't, as a society, condone a message around it's okay to not be okay. What's the resolution? Like, what are you resuming to?
Right.
Okay, so things suck now, but what's your plan to not have it suck any further? So.
Right. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people just don't want to change, or don't, first of all, I think you have to be pretty self-aware to know that, to admit that you have the problem and see the problem kind of from the outside. But then you have to want to make the change. You have to want to live life differently.
Get rewarded though nowadays. There's the SB 803, which we were forging behind with Painted Brain, the Senate Bill 803, which professionalized peer support specialists and provides funding through Medicaid, Medi-Cal in California, so that folks can actually provide a peer support service and get reimbursed through Medi-Cal.
Got you. I know, there's so much stigma that goes along with it. A lot of people don't want to get the help because they don't want people to know, especially if you have a child that might have something, and that goes on their record once you're submitting it to insurance. And that scares a lot of people away from it, which is very unfortunate.
You're right. For me, I think this is, again, one of the strengths of having borderline personality disorder. By the way, I have schizophrenia and OCD, which I didn't really share, but I think borderline personality disorder is a topic that no one cares to talk about, because they feel exactly what you just said. The stigma is so heavy. Actually, there's not only internalized stigma within people living with borderline personality disorder, but there's actual real stigma within the actual profession of providing services to those with BPD. And so the stigma outside of the world is like, oh yeah, mental illness sucks. And then when you get into the mental health services, they're like, yeah, you suck. You have BPD. I'm not going to help you. Get out of my office. Like, Jesus Christ, I didn't work this hard to have you come in and lose my license. Like, how are you? It's like, no, I'm not going to answer that question. Get out of my office. It's kind of funny.
Wow.
I would love to create like a little series of like borderline personality disorder people coming into an office trying to get support, and they're like, "No, don't talk to me." I have a right to not serve you. So, that wasn't really my experience, by the way. I've been pretty lucky in that I got caught up in I was incarcerated, so I'm lucky. They had to. Sorry, that's
That helped. That
that helped.
was that your bottom? Was that the?
That was the bottom. Yeah, they had to help me. I was incarcerated, so I guess that's the way to do it, right? No, I'm kidding. My God.
I had never really heard much about it, so I didn't realize the stigma was that much worse than other mental health conditions. Because just any mental health condition, there's a stigma on it, and people are
Yeah,
too
no,
nervous
this
to come
one's
up with. So,
very. This
so
one's
that one
thick.
even takes it to another level, right?
Yeah, this one's like bad. I mean, you got like I walked in once. I was like, "Oh, I've got schizophrenia." They're like, "Come on in." I also have borderline personality disorder. Like, get on out. Like,
Well,
like,
how does the schizophrenia present itself differently?
for me, the way that I process information, I think that I don't know. I don't want to contribute or tribute tribute the credit of schizophrenia helped counter my borderline personality disorder challenges. But I would say that given that I had a lot of different types of delusions and active visual hallucinations, I think that I had a different identity, right? So it really morphed into several different ideas of who I am or who I'm to become. And my borderline personality disorder would interact with that. Like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's try that. We'll change your name to Ison Solorius. Great, wonderful. Whatever. And oh yeah, you're from Greece. Wonderful. But where's that accent, right?
Mhm.
So like, one would just kind of communicate with the other and bring on
Right.
those traits or that story, and then I would embody it like an actor, right?
Mhm.
It's similar, except that you
Mhm.
live it every single day and you become that thing. So
Right.
it's very weird reality, and perception of the reality is always changing based on those delusions. So if the schizophrenia started to think, oh, now this person that you're interacting with they've got something going in their mind, they're not clean, they're possessed, something is directing them or controlling them, be mindful of that. Then the borderline would say, I'm cutting you out of my life, you shall never speak to me again. you know it's you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, what the hell happened here? And so sometimes it also feels like I'm on the passenger side of the seat and my BPD is sort of in the driver's seat. Like, it's fine, don't worry about it, David, I got it. They're like, wait, where are you going? Where are we going? It's like, we're going. It's like, yeah, but where? Don't worry about it. I've got you covered. And then we end up in the ditch, getting incarcerated. You know what I mean?
Right.
Black out, waking up in the mental hospital and thinking, wow, why am I in adult diapers? What the hell happened? Like, you
Right.
said you had this. So it's a very interesting engagement.
Right.
Um,
I mean, I can completely relate to feeling like I'm not in the driver's seat sometimes. I have this other, the subconscious, and it's
yeah,
just doing way too much. It is way too busy up there to be able to function out here.
right. It's
Yeah.
difficult. It's
Hmm.
difficult. So everybody, I think, has a little bit of BPD, very
Right.
small, and sometimes it can get heightened depending on if you have a lot of trauma.
Hmm.
Like PTSD can look like borderline personality disorder.
Hmm.
Um, so it all depends on how you, as an individual, where your resiliency is on are you resilient or are you apathetic, and sort of caving into your emotions?
Right.
And so it really says a lot about borderline personality disorder when I know it's, for me, it's like you have to not only be resilient because that's, like that temperament to like, I can deal with this emotion and trigger, but you really have to allow yourself to intellectualize the process so that the implementation can take place, and so
Mhm.
even if you're walking in, a lot of them, I've told everybody, like, when you walk into this arena of this formidable mental health broken system, which is always trying to sort of keep you into this path, this cattling formation that everybody comes in, you know, kind of like Animal Farm, but for like mental health, right?
Mhm.
Then you feel lost. You've already felt lost prior. You felt suicidal, but now you're feeling even more so, right? And so it's really daunting on anybody who's, you know, well, how am I going to recover? What is resiliency? I can't even grasp that. You want me to intellectualize it? What do you want from me? Because the people that are serving me aren't at the quality of care that I deserve. They don't have the empathy level that I need in order to feel safe. They are, they forget my name. They don't even know my name. Um, I can't eat the kind of food that while I'm in this facility, I'm a, you know, let's say I'm a vegan, plant-based, whatever. They're laughing about that. They're giving me meat purposely to piss me off. You know, you know, like they're, you know, there's certain things I wake up to and I'm like, well, how did I get here? They over medicated me for a few days, so I forgot about my name and who I was. Not that my psychosis didn't do that already. So you see, they can't trust what's broken.
Right.
And so for them, it's like, and they've told me, I've had so many, like I've had people writing to me on Instagram and Facebook on the good end, good side of things, saying, thank you so much. You've enlightened me. God bless you, whatever. And then there's the other side saying, screw you. I hope you can find the nearest bridge and jump off because you speak from entitlement. You're privileged. And I said, why? How am I privileged? I have the same disorder as what you've disclosed to me. It's because it's easy for you. Easy for what? Because I've made a decision. Just like anybody else, you have the right to a decision. There's many paths. You just have to decide which one you're going to go on. And so a lot of people love and hate me. And so some of the borderline personality disorder community would come after me saying, go die, kill yourself, F you. And then next week they'll come up to me and say, thank you, I love you, you're amazing. You're the only one who spoke the truth. Everybody else is coddling me. And it's like, look, you train people on how to treat you. So if you're gonna be, you know, if every little thing is gonna be a trauma mine for you,
Mhm.
you're probably never gonna recover because of the way that you think. You don't have a growth mindset. You have a fixed mindset. You're a victim. You have a victim mentality. You don't want to go through the process and take responsibility for every relationship you've torn up, for every therapist that lost their license under you, for every lawsuit, for every blah, 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 right?
Mhm.
You have to face your wrongs. And that's the moral. Once you come to that moral understanding, your mental illness gets it gets on track to the road to recovery or the rocky road to recovery.
Right. Right. And I'm sure it's still a battle every day. I'm
It
sure,
is. Oh my
people
God,
don't
it's
want
a
to.
continuum.
Right.
That's the program's name. I call the program the continuum for a reason, because it's a spiral, upward spiral.
Mhm.
They always tell us, right, when we're in their care, they say, well, you're going to go and you're going to have a downward spiral. But that narrative has been so fixed. I said, no, 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 I'm going to have an upward spiral, because at the least I'm not going to fall down on this direct vertical path. I'm going to fall and slide kind of down, but I'll go back up,
Mhm.
because I'm not going to let it be so polarized in terms of my destruction. I'm going to slide this time. And
Gotcha.
so, and as you're walking up this path, this is the continuum. And the continuum, when you turn it this way, it's a circle, by the way, obviously. And so it's it's a circle. This is the logo for that program.
Right.
And people use this all the time, like, oh, the continuum, the continuum. So we called it the continuum. It makes sense.
It does make sense. What I can relate most to you with is the OCD part. That is my biggest haunting wreck of my brain. I don't do really the physical stuff because everyone always thinks of OCD as people washing their hands 10 times or moving things. And mine's all about like rumination and just
Mhm.
repeating thoughts and just getting trapped in that, like just
Yeah.
waking up at 2 a.m. and not realizing we've been doing it until I've been awake an hour and my brain is just tired from
Oh my
freaking
gosh.
accomplishing nothing except for repeating horrible thoughts over and over again, or
Right.
bad memories or decisions, or it's
Right. Yeah. My God. I can relate with that, especially when So if I use the wrong word in a meeting, depending on the scenario, like the high stake, right? When you're in a high stake meeting, people are watching every move you make, the way you process information, your business decisions, your strategies, whatever. And if you present something that's stupid, for a better word, then you end up feeling like, man, they must think so low of me. And that's something that BPD does too. They tear themselves up. And then obsessive compulsive disorder comes in and says, don't worry about it. I'm going to obsess about this for a while, and I'm going to help you learn your lesson. Right? It's like, shit. Now it's like rumination. I can't sleep. I'm thinking about that word or that phrase or that suggestion. I'm like, wow. And then I learned, here's what I've learned with a growth mindset. When you take this ideology of don't stay on something for too long, get over it really quickly, because the faster you can get off of it, the faster you grow as a person, and it reflects your business, because you need to be as vulnerable as you possibly can to become the better version of you. That's, the best version of you out there. So that's why I took up comedy stand-up, is so I can self-deprecate, humiliate myself in public as often as I could, because the more you can lessen your ego, the more intellectualized you become, the more you intellectualize, because the amygdala part of the brain isn't allowing you to process anything else but your emotions, your most primitive emotions. So get off of it. So I would make mistakes. Even in this podcast, I'm certain I've said something stupid or wrong, which is fine. And people take it out of context and republish it and say something like, he is sick, he needs help. Who cares, right?
Right. What is painted brain? Let's get into that. What is
painted brain? When I first, we didn't name it. There was a young man who lived with autism, specifically Asperger's syndrome, at the time, and was in a group for young adults living with autism out of D.D. Hirsch. And that was my partner, Dave Leon, who started the group out of D.D. Hirsch, where he was creating these little mini zines, little magazines. And one of the members in that group said, hey, why don't we call this the painted brain? And so what it meant to be what it meant to be a part of the painted brain is really, really kind of like, it has an interesting origin story. During the 1970s, the deinstitutionalization policies that took effect took individualized support model in and cut off from community-based organizations and community efforts to bring people together. So everybody was in their own little silo. And what we were addressing was that, how to get people back together that live with these challenges. That's what it was meant to do. So why did we allow this to sort of continue without being addressed? It was, maybe lack of funding, lack of evidence-based practices with peer support, but we have a lot of that. So it's just not greatly understood. And so, because you have that, also the culture around clinicians and peers working together, or sort of recognizing the values in that, it wasn't really, no one cared. So that group would start, and it would become the catalyst to bridge individuals from different mental health agencies to bring their clients together in this group called the Painted Brain. And then they would create art, poetry, music, you name it. They would do photography, written pieces, whatever. And then that would all basically comprise the magazine. So we had a hard copy, and we would drop it off. I would drop it off at these cafes and these libraries. And I'm going to be honest here, I snuck into a lot of these places and dropped it off as if they were selling it there. And that wasn't legal. And I did this, and I remember getting caught multiple times, and it was so sad. I'm like, we just want to bring mental health awareness, and we don't even care for the money. We just want it to be present.
So are they are they actual places people come, or is it an online, or is actual?
Yeah. So we didn't have a place at first. We were kind of like hippies, we were trying to find our way, and we would like ask people, can we use your space? We did have the annex. That's how Dave and I met. When we left that space, we went to the Talking Sticks near up in the Santa Monica, Venice area.
Hmm.
And we were sort of mobile. We would meet at the park, we would meet at the ocean, the beach. We would meet at like random events. It was cool. Like we were very mobile at the time. Now we have a community center off of Pico and Robertson area.
Okay, so that's took a lot of fundraising and really, really grinding it out there.
We had to convince many people like, hey, look, mental illness, mental health, come on,
Yeah, yeah.
care about it. And eventually we got people to like, we fostered a community of donors, even when the funders and the fee for services, because we have a business model that we run off of. We don't expect a handout and even a hand up, really. I mean, we've been able to create our own internal services that funds 40 plus employees now.
Oh well.
And growing. We're going to be over a $5 million organization next year and growing to 10 million, it's projected. So, I mean, we are on fire,
Right.
and it's thanks to, Rachel Chambers, my other partner. She's an incredible fundraiser, incredible. I mean, if there's any organization out there that wants to build capacity in terms of getting grant writers or getting the capital to build, she is the person to go to.
Okay, it sounds like a wonderful organization. Where can people find it? I'll make sure I put the link as well.
It's paintedbrain.org.
Okay, it's a beautiful website too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And then there's also purementalhealth.com for those that are interested in VR, like you were mentioning earlier.
Mhm.
So virtual reality engagement and providing peer support, as well as therapy, where we have licensed clinicians that we work through with Anavolt. And that is something that is, I've never seen it. You only hear about it kind of in theory, but not in practice. We've got, we're also in growing our partnership with Dr. Skip Rizzo at the ICT Institute of Creative Technologies at USC. And he is incredible. He is they call him the godfather or the grandfather of VR therapy. So this is somebody that you guys should look up. And we're working with him, and we have a partnership now, an expansion into Boulder, Colorado. A few weeks I'm going to be going out there to set up the program for the continuum program there. And that basically is, like I said, it's a virtual reality program that allows for individuals to engage in social and emotional settings, like a social and emotional support group setting, as well as resiliency training. And so for those individuals, the reason we're going to Boulder, Colorado is there was a mass shooting that occurred on March 22nd of this year. And so in response to that, our program is now going to support the victims that were in the King supermarket. And so that's a huge thing that's going on right now that's in development. And so it will be one of the first virtual reality trauma intervention programs for mass shootings in the world.
Wow.
That's something we're doing, yeah.
Very cool. That's super interesting. And I can picture I can definitely visualize how that could help. And I'm surprised that it's taken this long for it to come around. I guess they've been using virtual reality for like scared of height, height fears and elevator fears and things like that. But the intricacies of mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And even for first responders, I mean, even the police, my goal is that we can connect with different police departments in different counties and do virtual reality training to be prepared for responding to those in mental health crises. So,
Gotcha. Yeah. Very cool. And then lastly, you do stand up, you mentioned.
Yeah.
When did you start that? I just took my first class 2 weeks ago, did my first 5-minute set. So I'm a newbie.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's great. Good for you. That says a lot about, I mean, I'm not trying to like speak and compliment myself through you. That's not what I'm trying to do right now, but
I understand.
it's kind of going to be like that. It really builds your character to be out there vulnerable, kind of like you're just bare in front of everybody, showing your character and trying to basically not exploit your weak points to make fun of that and to say, wow, ha ha ha. But it's a way to bridge people toward normalizing mental illness, because the idea of, I don't understand this person, therefore I fear them or I write them off, is the normal thing to do. So when you use comedy to bridge people to have that kind of like education or that advocacy work done, it's
Mhm.
indirect. You're not trying to like, hey, did you know you're coming in here for mental health ed? No, you're just making them laugh through it, and then they understand you, and if anything they want to connect with you further. And every single time they think of schizophrenia, BPD, OCD, bipolar, whatever it is, they're always going to make that connection and association with you.
Got you. Got you. How long have you been doing the stand up for?
I was first 13 when I started.
A long day. I mean,
Yeah,
you don't
and
look
then
that
people
old.
are like, "Oh,
Not that
he's not
long.
that funny for that long, He's that's going to be terrible." But 13, I started, and I did a Hollywood improvisation club. I went there and I did my stand up. I was so young, and I was so scared of like, not that I wasn't going to be funny, but there was a skateboard trick that I had to do, and I kept thinking somebody may get hurt tonight, and because if I don't land this trick on stage,
The skateboard's gonna just fly off and
nose someone's chin and they're gonna end up in the ER. So that almost happened, by the way. So the last second, I said a joke, and then no one laughed. I was like, "Shit, this is it. This is gonna save it. I'm gonna do this skateboard trick," and I did a kickflip. And the wheel, I ended up landing on a wheelie. So I was on my back wheels,
Mhm.
and the guy was drinking a wine. He had his glass, and it tipped his wine glass into his mouth, so it made him look like an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He was just like gulping it. And then the red light came on, like, get the hell off this.
Yeah. Oh, you're lucky that you're very lucky.
That was it. And so that, but coming back to now, most current, I connected with Richie Leese is a good friend of mine, and we became good friends after the outreach. And he contacted me through Comic Cure. He has a nonprofit organization or social enterprise organization that supports fundraising for nonprofits. And so through comedy,
Mhm.
he reached out and he said, "Hey, we would love to do a micro fundraiser for you guys." And then that's how it started. And then I told him, I said, one night I got up there during one of our fundraisers. I said, "I'm going to make fun of my schizophrenia tonight. And hopefully it'll bring the stigma down." And I went up there and I started making fun of my hallucinations. And I looked around and I'm like, shit, no one's laughing. Is this therapy now? Like no one's, you know what I mean? Like no one's actually laughing at like what I'm saying. This is terrible. Shit, now it's therapy. So I said, okay, I'm going to get off the stage and I'm going to take his workshop. So I took his workshop series, and that's when I started to write material that actually made people laugh. One of them I can give you, but like I don't know if you've listened to some of my like one of my sets.
I have not, unfortunately. I wish I had, and I will after
No,
this.
you're good. You're
So,
good.
yeah, no, I
One of
wish I
them,
had. Yeah.
one of them I say is like, my my good friend tells me that, David, you have schizophrenia, but joke's on him. I don't have friends. So, whatever,
Right, right.
or like 1 out of 3 people lives with severe mental illness. Look to your left, now look to your right. Both of those people think you're crazy. It only works in like an audience that,
No,
like,
it's funny though.
right? So it's like when you play on stats, you kind of play with people's minds. Like, you don't know, maybe you're the crazy one too, And so they start to have this like, oh shit, maybe I have it. Maybe, I've been myself all my life. This
Oh
is
yeah.
I had a comedy show that I'm so mentally ill. I knew it.
Right. Well, if all my friends are with me, then they all just look at me because they know that I'm the
That's
they know
right.
that I'm the crazy one. Yeah. So I relieve all of them of.
That's right. Very cool.
This has been great, Eli. I really appreciate the openness and sharing. Your organizations sound wonderful, and you are helping an infinite amount of people. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah, and
I appreciate you, Michael.
yes, thank you. Such strength. So I'm gonna get past a little better. I'm gonna get a little better at my OCD.
Good. It's good. All in time.
All in time. All in time. So thanks again. We will post the links underneath the podcast and the video. Again, it's paintedbrain.org as well as peermentalhealth.com. And again, this has been Second Scene. I am your host, Michael, and this is a Dweebs Global production. It's why we do this podcast, dweebsglobal.org. They give free mentorship help all around the world, pretty much every language, anything you need help with, anything from resume writing to mental health, dweebsglobal.org. We'll see y'all next week.